If you ever want to feel flattered as an author, just put an excerpt of your work into AI and it'll tell you something like this. The excerpt you provided sets a vivid scene with detailed descriptions of the environment and the characters' interactions. It captures the essence of a specific moment, creating a strong mood and atmosphere. The use of sensory details in dialogue helps immerse the reader in the setting and the characters' experiences. Oh, well, thanks, AI. I thought I would start just recording myself reading these chapters from my first novel. One of the motivations was I'd rather have people give me their feedback more than a robot. And so, what better way than to share on YouTube? And yeah, without further ado, The Summer Abroad, Part 1, Chapter 1. Earth rose, and a gust of spring wind blew dandelion seeds up and far away. In its place followed an air of buds and blossoms and evening mist, fresh under the cat-eyes glow of north-central Austin. The cedar trees were crying as squirrels chased one another up and down wet branches. Spring was here, and soon would night be too. Finals week did not concern us, nor had it ever, and neither did class the next day, Monday. What mattered most to Rick and me was where to kick up our feet while we sat on the porch couch, to chill before the weekend's end. Comfortably, we sat in silence, numb after having discussed what the Earthrise from the point of the moon, what the Earthrise from the point of view of the moon must look like when the beat of a nearby drum solo passed by. I'm going to try to do this in one take. Rick said, "The Earth," fervently. "The Earth wouldn't rise, it would spin." He finished his hit and passed me the joint, still cherry. That's how spring would end for us, still cherry. Now the season's electricity prepared to send jolts down our spines. When I finished my hit, I returned what pinch was left of the J. "I'm too bored to yawn," Rick said, holding his breath in, rubbing his hands over the holes of his jorts, and flicking the roach to the front lawn he had mowed earlier that day. My eyes retraced the J's arch, its trail of smoke, until the gray hues thinned out and vanished. Between blades of grass, the herb surrendered its crackling breath with one last puff that disappeared like a dot in the air. Think that'll fertilize the... Yuck. We stared at the spot where smoke had trickled upwards into the buttery Austin glow, then got distracted. From afar, spray-painted fumes began mixing with the sticky cedar and the dandelion seeds. What a cocktail. Rick popped his knuckles, let out a yawn finally, and got up. As he reached for the knob, the front door of our duplex swung open. Out came Alexander Hawkeye, our good friend and third roommate. He sat down next to me on the couch, hugging his beat-up six-string, cracked open a tall boy with one hand, and put it to his mouth. Not a drop of liquid barley or hops fell onto the burnt orange shirt he always wore. Rick grabbed 2 brews from a case under the couch, tossed me one, and sat down on the porch rail in front of us. "It's strange to see you two so quiet," Alex said, almost in a mumble. "Mm-hmm." Rick was just about to go pass out. "Hold up," Alex said, setting his tall boy between his feet so he could tune the guitar. "Have you guys renewed our lease yet?" "Nah," Rick said. "That doesn't expire till August." I shrugged my shoulders. "August is 2 months away. We want a place to live next year, right?" 2.5 months, Rick replied. "More," I added. We sighed. After tuning his strings, Alex plucked for a minute some calm river music, later some improv flamenco. He asked me what the word hogar meant, because he had heard it in a song. "Wait," he said, interrupting my answer to tell us he had secured a job for a big-time feature film being shot in town by its most famous director. Just got off the phone with the PA, he said. They want me to fill in for a gaffer who's dropped out. I'll be working every day, from dawn till dusk, 5 times a week, starting tomorrow and into June. They'll pay pretty good, too. Rick looked Alex dead in the eye. I know, Alex said. I can't come to practice anymore. You don't mind. Rick backhanded the air in front of Alex. Whatever, man, he said, raising an eyebrow at me before looking back at Alex. We'll be a 2-piece drum and bass band from now on. I can still play shows on the weekend. It's whatever. Congrats. I knew Rick wasn't pissed, but he was jealous. He wanted Alex to himself. Though Rick took media studies classes, he wasn't the type to lean over a textbook. Of more interest to him was the steady, odd job circuit he ran with his toolbox and lighting kit. He lit indie films here and there, some events, even worked live sound at bars, though his heart truly laid on the throne. He didn't own a drum kit. He could piece together one from cheap rentals or hustle bits off friends or friends of friends. He said he was saving up for his own kit, even described the 22-piece drum set he would get, crash, cymbal, cowbell, and all. Would even buy the one off our nearby neighbor when he had enough money saved. Alex and I went along and played with him and practiced out of storage units around the corner from our neighborhood, but we didn't share the same illusions. Rick said he heard the future, heard the songs before writing them down. From his throne, always borrowed, he would direct Alex to play a melody, humming it, beat-bopping it, if he had to, or leave me lines of lyrics that had come to him in a dream, or celestial meditation, penned on colored sticky notes he would then stick to my bedroom door. Honestly, I'm not ready to process that trio we were attempting, but what I can say is Alex was more receptive to Rick's spirited suggestions. I, on the other hand, only let Rick's lines decorate my door. Folks enjoyed him more that way, by never hearing them. If we were doomed to fail, I didn't want it to be because of our band's lyrics. Rick had decided our band name, and that was his one verbal contribution. Other than that, what we needed was his rhythm and his arms to draw women to our shows, draw men to the women, and sell beer to the men. Rick said he had figured out the formula, was convinced we'd make it, and I mean, up until that night, we did play every other week. Alex, on the other hand, wasn't as convinced. A perfectionist at whatever he does, all his free time went to composing music. Nevertheless, throughout our senior year, he began plugging into his amps less and buttoning up his collar more. He would practice with us during the week, after classes, sure. But when gigs came in one after the other, Alex began making excuses. Other gigs got in the way. Wants to light this film or produce that short or mix someone else's audio. What began as favors for other people quickly turned paid. He was good. First, the contracts paid him in beers, then brownies, then eventually money. Now he was working for the big boys in town. He didn't need to ask his parents for help anymore. So it didn't surprise me that he chose to chase independence, which is real, over music biz, which is fun, but not always so real. A shame, again, because he was good. With him, Rick and I would have been unstoppable. I remember walking into his room once as he recorded sounds for a guitar riff that had sparked like a hot ember from a campfire during a practice earlier that day. We haven't hit record on our mixing board, and he couldn't remember what he had just played. As soon as we returned home, he rehearsed hours and hours into the night, trying to get back to that midday groove he had ignited. Close to midnight, I poked my head into his bedroom and saw he had set the Mexican candles I'd gotten him for his birthday all along his bed. A fog machine poured oily clouds from a shelf next to it, and his Canon-sized monitors blared a loop of his own notes over XXYYXX's About You over and over and over. As he tore open the calluses of his fingertips to add more and more harmonies, loops, and clicks. Between the fog, the candles, and the dub, I stepped in to complement the mosaic of audio he had constructed, but when he heard the door creak, he kicked me out faster than if I had walked in on him watching porn. "It's not ready," he said, going back in. "Live forever inside the beat. I must live forever inside." That was the first time I saw him strumming like mad, wearing the hand-woven, burnt orange shirt and little else. It made sense at the time. I raised my tall boy and congratulated Alex as well for getting a spot on the feature film's credit roll, making sure to hide my own jealousy. The three of us were seniors, but I was the only one who would reach May without a job that could turn into a career. It felt like crossing a finish line, only to find out it had been a rolled out piece of a finish line draped over a brick wall. The last 2 years of college, I had worked multiple part-time jobs, including one work-study back-of-house gig at a theater where I mostly directed incoming packages and wrote philosophy papers, and new lyrics in my spare time. To the sounds of the wood shop down the hall, its pop music blasted from blown-out speakers that crackled synth sounds like out between plastic candy wrappers, nail guns, and screwdrivers. The gig paid decent for being student employment. The only downside was it would expire along with my student ID. So I needed something more concrete before starting real life. Drop the F, why don't you? A quien lo quiere celeste, my uncles often said. Between the part-time gigs and my second-to-last semester of school, I went in twice a week as an unpaid intern at the IFM Music Festival, writing publicity. I made the time for IFM because early on I'd been told the festival had grown big enough to need a dedicated music writer. My interview with HR was the next day, Monday. All I had to do was wake up and show up. Rick stood up from the porch rail, looked the two of us in the eyes, and declared we celebrate Alex's coming up in the world, saying there's a co-op party happening. Who all's playing? Bunch of lame bands. On a Sunday? Alex asked, scratching his chin with the tip of his headstock. Yeah, tonight. Alex leaned back into the couch, strummed a D minor. I have the early shoot tomorrow, he said. Can't. Rick stomped on a beer can and cracked open another. There was drool on his lips. He was desperate all of a sudden, agitated. Everything in that moment seemed lubricated, ready to go. Just turn up the gain and he would explode. He asked if I was down. I was, but I could also feel the fibers of my jorts fusing to the couch. Rick started hollering, and his hollering got dogs to bark around the neighborhood, so to calm him down I said yes, I'll go. I finished the last bit of flat, warm beer in my hand and popped the top of a cold one. Rick tried to guilt-trip Alex, but when his plan boomeranged, he sat back down, crisscrossed, and folded his arms. Alternatively, Alex said, we could celebrate this summer with a road trip through Europe. What do you fine gentlemen think? Rick shot up. He pointed at us with a can in his hand, spilling carbonated brew as he shook his head and twirled his ponytail, making Alex flinch. I flinched too, not because of the excitement, but because of what he said next. My dad told me over Thanksgiving that he'd be willing to use his miles to buy me a ticket as a graduation present. Let's go abroad. Road trip. Train trip. Backpack. Let's go. I can't think of a single reason not to, and at least 5 why we should. And they each involve an exorbitant amount of alcohol. Technically, Rick had 2 Spanish credits left to go that kept him from graduating with us in May. But he would still fly out. Whatever. Why not? The dog had a dad to pay for it. Whatever, so what? We BS'd about doing the Appalachian Trail to the east or the Pacific Coast Highway to the west, and decided to hell with it. We should go to Europe because that's what graduates do. Nothing more to it. Settled. Settled as settled could be on a midnight pre-soiree between a Sunday and a Monday, the end of an old weekend and the start of a new. We cheered, emptied the rest of the case, and dashed up to Rick's bedroom to buy tickets on his laptop. He typed and clicked while I jutted over him. When I looked at Alex, his forearms were folded. He was shaking. The look on his face said things were going too fast. But screw him. The wind was picking up for Rick, and I felt it too. We were in his room, his ship, and he knew from where the gale blew, in the direction of adventure. A pinched nerve under our shoulder blade, poking our lungs. I couldn't remember the entire day up to that point, or any of spring semester for that matter. Life was slipping away, and the rock under our feet kept on spinning, rodando, rodando. Rick clicked the purchase button, and so did I. 2 one-way tickets to Amsterdam, mid-May, in about 2 weeks. We turned around, and back to Alex, who had stepped back. "Why so soon?" he asked. "And why Amsterdam?" "It's stuck in my head," Rick sang. "Peter, Bjorn, and John are from Holland." "Yeah, okay, but why Amsterdam?" Alex asked. Rick laughed. "Because of the dank music there," he said. "Duh." "And high art," I said. "And dope Dutch people," Rick said. "Don't forget the fresh green trees," I said. "Okay, I get it," Alex broke, rolling up the ends of his burnt orange sleeves. "But I have to work in May, so where should I meet you to?" "In Bordeaux," I said, running out and coming back with a map of Europe. "Look, we'll probably be there by June." Rick snagged the map away, flipped it upside down, then right side up, scratched his head, and agreed. In less than an hour, the 3 of us had confirmation numbers. After that, Alex told us he was going to put the guitar to bed and call his girl. We told him to stay and hang for a minute. I'd roll another J, we'd kick it, have fun before the weekend was over. But the stoic, tiger-colored boy shook his head and left. "Oh," he said, rearing his head back into the room, "remember to renew our lease." Rick gave Alex the F you with a slap of his arm and passed me the rolling papers. Aside from a north wind, most of the walls were bare in Rick's room. There was a free poster from a show we'd been to years ago, some hanging Chinese lanterns with their cables running from an outlet screwed in off-kilter, and a bit of yellow paint to accent the wall opposite of his door, only that the top of the wall wasn't finished because he hadn't bought painter's tape. It all made the room dizzying, and, other than that, bare. Rick didn't need much, just a bed, no frame, just a desk, a pile of sticky notes, no speakers, no books, a walk-in closet, where inside he had abandoned an inkless printer under a pile of dirty clothes. If you asked him why he didn't clean his mess, he would ask you, "What mess?" The only order in his room was from the drum heads up against his bed, neatly organized left to right alphabetically. Bass, floor, hanging rack, snare. Crisscrossed over his once white shag rug in the middle of the room, I sewed the last bit of crushed bud in a clean sheet of hemp and rolled the thing tight while counting those drum heads. If he never buys a kit, I thought, it would be because he spends all his money on replacements. He was going this week to replace a drum head he'd beat and bled on last week. I remember thinking how that errand would be more fun than anything I had planned for the coming week. More than my interview, more than graduation. Mama couldn't come, so what's the point? No intensity this end of spring. Forget graduation. A bummer. Then summer. Whoopee. Then reality again. Then again not knowing what the hell I was going to do. But at least there was this trip, right? And I knew I would somehow keep busy after. Even if only chores, laundry, walks, gigs, anything to put off the anxiety of committing to work. Anything to hold on to moments like this, in Rick's room, pure chill, with as few commitments as possible. And yet, for some reason, we did whatever we could to waste that liberty away. Drink, get high, watch the world fade, and complain about not having any work. Nothing but lick the corners of this soon-to-be rolled masterpiece. All I wanted was a job, full-time. A job, yes, after graduation. Someone to tell me what to do. Someone to tell me I belonged. Or maybe I didn't want that. I definitely needed passion. But so many are passionless. ¿Para qué formar parte? Mamá no pudo venir. Or maybe I did want to form part. Or maybe I only cared about what was at hand, like this J. It was the finest I'd ever rolled. I held it up to Rick in the light of a quarter moon shining through his window, reminding me to hold on, it's okay. The light of the world is at the end of the darkest valley, opposite a city on a hilltop. He closed his laptop. Done. You finished yet? We can smoke it later, I said, or now before we go to bed. Rick crossed his fingers as he brought his hands over his belly button and looked at those of his watch. It's Sunday, huh? Yup. And it's almost midnight. Yes, sir. And there's class tomorrow, right? Yup. Well, he said, unfolding himself and reaching for his desk drawer, we could smoke that fine J, or we could eat these shrooms. Epa, where'd you pick those up? I know a farmer. You ever tripped before? Nope, he said. Let's go boil some water. 20 minutes later, the two of us were outside on the front porch again, sipping on herbal teas and letting the magic of a new day steep us to release the charge. Do you smell that? Rick asked, nostrils flared and pupils the size of his mug. Did you just... Jasmine, I shouted. I smell jasmine. Jasmine, he asked, moving the tea away from his nose. Jasmine, white creamy jasmine. My guy, we must seek it. From our porch, we trailed down the same path we usually took to get to class, south and uphill, figuring we'd fall off as soon as something knocked on our perception's door. See, and Rick's nose led us south to jasmine, cedars, to broken sidewalks, graffiti, to middle-aged trees, onto campus, green saplings and stacked bricks, to some closed-off construction site between old and new buildings, where we felt safe and healed and peachy. And everything was so damn peachy. Felt so protected we did. Nothing could harm us. I mean, close your eyes. There were 3 mystic monoliths waiting to be turned on by an invisible hand so as to spray the world with their fountain of youth mist. Between that were some cute baby squirrels and tiny black ants doing the cha-cha around a ladybug, and 2 upside-down chimpanzees walking on their hands and knees, tummies to feather like clouds, backs to the dirt below. The ceiling was definitely the floor. Everything was on either side of itself, and the stars and the planets amused us, convinced us each giant deserved a novel. And then Earth uncorked our heads and flooded our veins with pulsating booms, twerks, and throbs, filled us with ideas of roaming free, of being free, fulfilling the Founding Fathers' dream. Rick! His eyes said something. Rick, I feel our summer abroad's already begun. Woohoo! I know what you mean, he said. I'm tripping too. We laid down together over some patchy ground, made dirt angels toe to toe. To know. We understood one another. We knew. Under construction was the site, and lit brightly true. Thus together we named the spot the Sanctuary. Sanctuary, I remember thinking, is a cognate with the C for an O. Santuario. Donde me siento envuelto en una ternura de sosiego y caricias. Rick stood up from the ground where his jaw dropped. Ay, I said, my bad. He mouthed the word joder as his face showed me he had understood. If only, he said, if only I could use these powers in my Spanish class. Es meramente simple, amigo mío, I said. Levanta la mano y pedíselo a la Pachamama. Rick raised his hand and asked Earth a question. Potential. I felt it too, big as it was soon after, though powerful in its time. All you had to do was reach out, and you'd pull what you needed. I need something more. Just touch it, and you are the closest you ever get to something. Say you'll never let me go. Hug me. We hugged for a minute and were one, contemplating for the first time a deep and profound sense of unity. All else succumbed to revelations more or less, evaded between words of an utterance one sought to explain the very thought you were thinking when explaining to yourself Home. What is home? Rick brushed off the question. What is home? Rick told me not to worry, just ride the bliss. Like Cowboy Neil at the wheel, dude, anyway. That was Bob Weir, making people feel good. Adventure. Don't be afraid to do wrong, you feel? That's right, have fun. But what is home at any rate, if at any time we are here now and then there, and somewhere else after that? Rick laughed like a bear. Let's go to that co-op party. From campus, we floated and slid away from the dark shadows and finished each other's sentences until hitting the insane west side of the campus, where the frat houses and student housing doubled as jungle gyms. West Campus, infamous for its infidel charm and vomit carpets and friendly potheads. Want a hit? Someone offered us on our way to the treehouse-like co-op building. Sure. More. A forced blink later, we were in some run-down hall, or inside a garage with an indoor music stage, toilet paper off the lighting fixtures, next to a kitchen of some sort where there had been a pasta dinner and a comedy show and a massive Sunday night punk rock party, and now only an after-party afterglow where people looked like 20-something cronies or rockabilly kids, eat, made out, or smoke cigs, or talk the post-coital talk. We had missed the headliner, lame, missed the action, shame, missed the fun. Never again. Never. Gone. I've got a feeling in my stomach, I whispered to Rick. He didn't hear. Rick was busy shaking two dudes off this one very attractive, baby mama-like mamacita. So I wandered off, a la cocina. No one. Bowls with dry pasta stacked, one on top of another, tongs too. No music though, just chatter. I found a torn-up love sofa and put my hands over my ears. Chatter. Too much English, la remil. Que pedo negro. Too much music, too, and drunk. Too many wooden floorboards. Parallel lines giggled, like a blonde walks. I locked myself inside what must have been a 20-person shared restroom and threw up into its unflushed toilet. I clenched, saw the pissed darkness behind the bowl, threw up again, heaved, coughed, flushed. Where am I? What is I? Who is I? My reflection in the bathroom mirror waved me goodbye as I stepped out and found Rick. When I grabbed him, he turned and stared at me with those drumheads for eyes. Waited. I told him tripping and parties don't mix. Paused. Realized I had only thought it. Snapped out of it and finally verbalized, I'm out, yo. Chill, he said, drawing me in with a swing of his chest. Look. Hola, stranger, she said. Something told me I'd find you here. Stephanie, ¿cómo te va? Her full chest pressed against mine. The sleeves of her shirt rubbed the back of my neck, burned me, distracted me as her collar exposed the space between her splendid breasts, a street lamp's light caress, and the goosebumps of her speechless round skin, sensitive, so sweet, honey maple nipples erect, poking me, keeping me quiet, catching my eye, filling me up with saliva and the taste of ripe pineapple, the tang of which overpowered my eye. As I drowned in her cascade of words flowing like white tea from a mouth I had known long ago, and was soon to remember. Hers a complement to mine, a body lost to another's. At the end of the day, una sin semilla, fumable. Guess where I'm going this summer, she asked, pointing her lips at me. Europe? She froze. How did you know? I looked at Rick and in an iris saw myself. We bought some tickets earlier today, I said. We're going too. She yelled a bit more, all the while tugging at her collar. I adjusted my belt, looked up at her face and told her something, like everything happens for a reason. She stared at me for a long time, remembered something, then laughed. Oh my God, Mikhail, never mind, you are so high right now. Anyway, we should meet in Barcelona in July, if you happen to be there. We shall see, I said. She dipped her chest. Come, she said. Barcelona, you, me, July. Before I could reply, Rick interrupted. Let's go back. Back home, I asked. He slapped my back. Yeah, buddy, home. When we got back to the duplex, Rick and I whipped up a couple of PB&Js because they always cheer you up. It stuck in my head. We munched and before sunrise chatted. Not about summer, not about unfinished projects, not about impending unemployment, not about renewing the lease, not about anything. Only about the quality of crunchy peanut butter between our teeth. He showed me his with a smile, then left. As soon as he did, my sandwich was gone, and the thoughts and the questions and the insecurities came back, quietly planting themselves in my head at this, the start of a new week. My last semester, now at an end. All weeds, these thoughts. Europe seemed so far away. But where the hell was I standing for that to be true? Austin, this outpost town deep in the heart of Texas. This duplex, it's a rental, I kept thinking. A rental. Only shallow breaths held me from slipping through the holes of the hammock in the backyard. Yarns weaved by others, the world around me, the cedar, the birds awakening, the dandelions sprouting from my herb garden. Seedy siblings of the ones in the front porch, all pointing up to the sky, going far away, towards that fading quarter moon from where you'd see an earthrise spin. A sigh, a gasp, or laugh. A yawn farewell. Only one thing was settled. Only one thing was sure. The summer abroad. Stay tuned. Gotta read the next chapter.